Right. So, last question. You said earlier on that you can't necessarily take time correlation as a indication of evidence for causation, but reality is that temporal association is a significant indicator of causation, and within that time frame there, you've said that it's not unusual for deaths to jump around May. Generally, I've looked at that data series, they generally jump around July. So winter kicks in June, takes about a month with the secondary bacterial infection, so they generally spike in July, August, September. But the significant thing about the jump in deaths was this jumped in May, the month after the vaccine rollout. Deaths spiked, will cause mortality, that is, blunt that it is, and then it basically went through for the next 2 years. So there was no seasonal variance. There was just a spike, and it's come off a little bit, but it wasn't like a temporal thing associated to the winter. It was more temporally associated to the rollout of the vaccine.
As you noted, I'm a time series person, so I don't want to disparage the power of time series analysis. I think it's very powerful. In terms of the exact example that you're talking about, let's say the rise in mortality in May of 2021. If you took any given year over the last 10 years, it's very likely that you will see an increase in May compared to April, and you would continue to see an increase into the peak of flu season or season where we have respiratory illnesses. So that's a typical thing that we see. The way I would, as a time series person, one way that I might look at this, and I have actually taken a look at it, would be to say, well, the concept of excess mortality actually takes into account seasonal variation. So I would be looking at, rather than a spike or an increase in mortality during that period, rather than a month-on-month increase in mortality between, let's say, May and April, I would be looking at an increase in excess mortality, because that takes out the seasonal factors that we normally see.
But isn't that agreeing with what I just said, where we've just had a big jump and it hasn't really come off at all? So,
well, to give some numbers which I think are quite useful, these numbers are based on the ABS weekly reports, and the challenge with the ABS weekly mortality numbers is it's hard to align them directly with a month, but doing my best to do that. If you look at excess mortality in 2021, between January and April, that was running at 1.9%. And after May, it was running from May to December, post-vaccine rollout, it was running at 1.2%, so it was actually lower. We have as well talked about potential reasons for higher mortality in 2021, and one of those reasons is the concept of death displacement, which we would expect to see, particularly coming off the back of a relatively low mortality year in 2020, indeed one that had negative excess mortality.
Yeah, except we had lockdowns again in 2021, but I'll leave that as a statement. Thanks, Chair.
Can I just add one thing to that? Just also in 2021, we did see, according to the National Notifiable Disease Surveillance System, over 500,000 COVID cases. So there was COVID at that point in time.
Authorised G. Rennick People First Chermside.